So today we're going to talk about ending the runner-chaser dynamic once and for all. And one of the things I want to just get straight to the point is you truly have to let go of what it is you desire in life, whatever that is, in order to get what you want. Otherwise, you're creating separation from it. The second thing you need to do is make sure to shift your perception and perspective from this one person, this one experience, this one concept, this one label, and let all of that go. All the beliefs, all of the programs you have learned up to this point need to go out the window so you can create something new from where you are, who you are, right here, right now. Hello, fellow flames. In case we haven't met, my name is Dr. Harmony, and I help twin flames dealing with separation to come into the alignment of themselves so that they can awaken that divine within, merge with it, become the best version, and then attract and magnetize your highest, greatest version of you. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when all my videos and content come live. And before we get started, if you have been separating yourself from the highest version, you've not been stepping into the purpose and putting all your pain into that, and you're ready to go to the next level, make sure to check out my Lightworker Academy in the link below, because it can really help you begin to show up and be who you are from that real self in mission. And that will help you stop alchemizing inside and bring it outward into your life and serve others in the process. So when we think about the runner-chaser dynamic, we're always thinking about the runner as the person that's running away from you, and they're not willing to see the reflection or work on themselves through your reflection of the mirror reflection you're presenting to them. And therefore, it's kind of thought like, okay, you're chasing that person, but they're running from you. Now, here is a thing, because we've been taught in one dimension of that, but there's really two dimensions, and there's every spectrum and perspective in between. So I want to talk today about a new way to see this, a new way to look at it, so that way you can actually be able to put and look at your part in the spectrum that's going to allow you to see things from a different perspective, so you can again start taking charge of your own part in this role of this dynamic. And again, ultimately take back your power so that you can become whole and complete within. And basically what that means is, if you're running away, I said, look at it as you're running away from yourself. But I always say that technically, if you are the chaser, used to be, it was heavier dominant in your codependencies and the need to fill the void of that person to fill you up, and that there's something missing and you're abandoned. But collectively, we've really cleared a lot of that. And so basically, one of the things I want you to look at is that runner may not be running from you. They might be running towards themselves. And that means maybe in that, they're actually doing what they need to do for themselves by taking back their own power and choosing what they need to do versus expecting you to do that for them. And just because they don't fill your needs, you look at them as being the runner, and they might really just be chasing themselves, first of all. In addition to that, when you think about, say, being the chaser, we think of that, as I said, being the void and you're codependent and you're running towards that. But what if in this time and space, and I'm seeing this with myself and clients, what if that running away or that chaser is really running towards chasing what you need for yourself, which is running towards yourself in that reflection, meaning you're not codependent anymore. You are not trying to fill that void anymore. But by not running from yourself and staying in whatever the situation is actually for your greatest good and your highest version of what you need to go to the next level. And that can also be coming from an uncomfortable place. And this is where a lot of people look at it and say, this is toxic, because they're only looking at the side of filling the void. And that is not always the case. Now, that may be the case. So when it comes to this person that you're technically chasing, you need to look at it from your point of view and be, why am I chasing them? Am I chasing them because I expect them to fulfill something that I'm missing? Which technically is the case, but is it missing from the lower self? Is it missing because I need to then pull back, go into myself, stop running for myself, go inward and heal that within myself, stand up, show up, speak up, set loving boundaries, have enough respect for myself that I don't put myself in that situation, or I don't allow myself to go through those things because I deserve better. Now, if you have done that and you have mastered that, and you are now moving into the, say, shifting from like your femininity or masculinity within into the other. So me, for example, I'm shifting from my masculine role into my feminine role. In my masculine role, we'd never put up with certain things in order to, like, say, in previous relationships, I technically was the runner because I wouldn't put up with certain things because I wanted to basically move past it and be in a place that I didn't want to face those things. But technically, had I not been the runner from myself and stayed and looked at those things, I could see the deeper level and the deeper layer that showing up on my other side that I didn't want to see because it was deeper, more painful. And technically, that was connecting to more of my emotions and my feminine side that I had shut down. And so I can see very clearly that, there are certain things in my life that is directing me into doing things that I never would have done in ways I never would have thought about because I'm waking up another side of myself that is saying, if I now take the action I used to would have taken and been that runner, then technically I would be running for myself in that situation, not towards myself. However, staying and showing up and being present and seeing things that are really deep from a high level is still my spiritual evolution, my spiritual growth, which is still my highest good. And to realize that this journey is about choices. Life is an ever unfolding evolution of choices, and that every time we make a decision, there's always two minimum choices, could be multiple choices, but in that it's a matter of which choice to make that operates and helps you attain and connect to and align with the highest version of you. And in that, you should always choose yourself. And in that, that means if you are got your whole life on hold and you don't feel like you can live without that person in a way that you're stuck and you can't move on to love and you've never done that before, and maybe you have done it and this time it's different, but it's pulling it up inside of you from a place that you aren't seeing what you truly need to see. Now, I had a comment of somebody kind of wanting to know a little bit about some of this information and said, basically, don't tell me that it's an inside job because I've done all that work and I want to know it from a different perspective. And this is kind of what came through as I told that person I would process this, because you're only seeing one side of the inside job. Another side of the inside job is to basically do the opposite of everything you've ever been taught and done from a new way and look at it from a new angle and new light. And where it might feel like it's being disempowering, disrespecting yourself, you should be standing up, showing up. You've learned that if you've done that. If you haven't, you still need to do that. That's why this is an individual, like, inside job. And while people think that this journey's one cookie cutter way, you got to realize there is a spectrum here and there's a bandwidth and there's things all over the place. And what works for one doesn't always work for all. But you have to choose what works best for you. And pay attention to your masculine and feminine roles. And is your masculine the one operating, or is your feminine the one operating? Because technically both sides of those are in you, and it's going to create part of the dichotomy that in you that is not sure in these new ways to navigate on the other side of who you are as to which choice or decision or action to take in which direction. So you have to really gauge and pull back for a minute and really get an opportunity to be like, well, what have I already mastered in this? What have I already done? And that's where I'm telling you, like, I've already done all those things. I've left a marriage of 13 years, never shed a tear. And I have left many different types of relationships, but what I will say is I can see that reflection in my father, where my father was always going to leave, and my mother always kind of put up with that. And I never understood why she did that, because to me, what it taught me was it taught me to be the runner, because in that I didn't think that what my mom put up was right, and then therefore I followed the patterns and actions of basically my father, even though I didn't realize it, because that's what I saw. And so these are some new awarenesses that I've had in my own journey and own direction, that different experiences have taken me into the deeper layers of this to really extract the information on this level that's really merging my own inner masculine and inner feminine energies, creating that oneness within. And when you come into that space, the runner chaser dynamic will stop, because it will follow what you need. And you will then, and what it will say is, it doesn't mean it's going to stay there, because everything's teetering and everything's changing and everything's in different dimensions and everything's different timelines. And depending upon these choices you make, which direction you choose, I'm always saying, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Julian says that you're either blessed if you do and blessed if you don't. And so regardless, you can't even make a wrong choice. But yet there is a soul contract. And in the soul contract, you're going to navigate it in the way that your soul needs for you to get that lesson you need. And therefore, you need to be open to both sides of this, not fixated on one side. Being fixated on one side is creating that runner chaser dynamic that exists inside of you, that when you merge, and I actually literally a few days ago, merged and had this intermarriage of my masculine and feminine that took place on the yoga mat. And it was such a beautiful experience, and it broke open my crown chakra, and a lot of things just really came in. And so I think in the shift in timeline of our masculine and feminine energies on the bigger collective scale, we are basically, as the divine feminine that's been in the masculine, wounded masculine, it's time for us to step that down. And it's time for us to allow our feminine to step up. And our feminine might be in a state of feeling disempowered or feeling a sense of weakness and not being used to it. And it's like, where's that, masculine to protect and to feel secure within myself? But what this is really doing is it's opening up emotions inside to expand your emotional range, so you can collect these feelings and these thoughts and then purge it out of the physical body, so that you can then bring more wholeness and more completeness and more freedom and heal the traumas. Because all of this is technically creating a sense of triggers that's, triggering the trauma that's there from some level, so that you can actually heal that trauma and purge it out of your nervous system, out of your body, out of your memory patterns, and reprogram all this. And I've been writing about that, and I had even asked Julian about this. We were talking about a couple days ago, or maybe even yesterday, but he's a trauma specialist, so I had mentioned to him about this trauma, and about how a lot of people think it's toxic, and how that we think of oh, we don't want to get triggered, so we're going to step away from that toxicity, because it's creating loops and cycles that maybe I'll step out of the loop. And that's where I'm telling you, I have stepped out of the loop so many times that I keep getting back in the loop. So I'm finally looking at, why am I in the loop? And, basically I'm being shown to stay in the loop. And here's why. This is what he had described to me. He's like, you get to this place and it's like having a chalkboard, and you erase everything and it's clean. And then you think about, writing with the chalkboard, and it goes on with just the chalk on the board, and there's a little diffusion inside of that board and that chalk that kind of goes into it and gets absorbed into it. But what trauma does, basically, it comes in and etches it in, like if you were to take a knife on it and you're etching on that. And now, no matter how much you erase it, that scratch is still in that board. And that's what we're healing here. And the only way to heal it is to do the equal and opposite at the exact force that it took to create it, to neutralize it. And what that means is you need to do the opposite thing you've done. And actually means you have to recreate the trauma to heal it, but it has to come from the equal and opposite polarity of the trauma that created it. And that when you do that and you're recreating the trauma, Now you're able to bring it up and see what belief system created what caused that. Now create an entirely new belief system that allows you to heal the other side of that yourself. And now, once you do that and you have purged that and out of your body, because it's like the neutrality between that etching in that and of both sides basically cancels the other out. And I'm going through this physically and emotionally and mentally, and I'm writing about it. And I'm seeing a lot of people deal with this. And it links all to this inner dynamic of creating union within yourself, and that separation is in yourself. And the other person is the reflection of whether you're running or chasing yourself, and running away from yourself or running towards yourself. And so the key to remember in this is whichever direction you're going, know that you want to be running toward yourself. And so really evaluate what direction you take, making sure, are you running to yourself or away from yourself, and which one is the highest version of you, and which one's coming from maybe an action, thought, or feeling or belief that you had that you keep repeating, that you need to actually let it trigger you to create the opposite belief, feeling, emotion. And this will neutralize and the dynamic. And when you neutralize this within yourself, you will attract your mirror reflection. Now, so many people on the twin flame journey are stuck on this one person label and idea that only that one person can do this for you. And I've had a revolving door. And I've said this before, and whoever that was that said they liked when I said that, I'm not kidding. At some point, this will more come out. I've had revolving door in all aspects of what I'm telling you here. And what I can tell you is that part of the revolving door was because I was stepping out of the loop. And that's what a lot of people are doing here. And that's why they're having repeated cycles. And it all still links to the childhood wounds. And I'm actually about to do a training for a group of people on the childhood wounds. And with that being said, I do offer an online course for the childhood wounds. And the first module is free, about why you chose your parents. Because your parents are the ones that are creating your intimate relationships and the connections you have with them. And I don't care how much work you've done in that space, there's another layer more to do. I mean, I've intentionally brought something full circle that I started from 2008 until the last couple of weeks with my parents and the dynamic. And in between there, I've intentionally picked up speed with healing the childhood wounds the last 7 years. And about 3 years ago, I created this online program that literally changed my life. And in the process of that program 3 years ago, I'm going through another layer. I'm going through another purge. And it links to something deeper inside of me. And I can see clearly that if I don't face this and all these things that are bringing up in me, then I am running away from me. And so therefore I need to stay in it to run towards myself so that I can neutralize this, because I'm watching it neutralize a combination of my past history and relationships and my current one. I'm also seeing how that plays out in my parents' relationship and how it's being rewritten in a beautiful way from the what I saw. So it's very beautiful. So let me know how this topic has impacted you. Any thoughts, comments, any questions, and also any topics that you might want to hear about, because I'm wanting to show up in a place of getting back to a little bit more of that real talk and just show up very authentic and being here to serve whatever needs you have. So make sure to like, comment, share the shine. I'll see you next week in the next video. Namaste.